This isn't gonna work well.
It's fun.
In this video, we're gonna take a scene that I transplanted from my old layout and start the process of returning it to its former glory. Hey rail fans, I'm Steve Brown and welcome to It's My Railroad. On this channel, we bring you the highest quality modeling videos we possibly can, showing you how to build great models, scenes, dioramas, and even model railroad stuff just like you see here. So if you're into that sort of thing, make sure and subscribe. And while you're on our channel page, check out that new join button to take a bit deeper dive into what we do here in the hobby room. Well, like I said, this is Switch Junction. Well, it's kind of a work in progress right now. This used to be one of my favorite scenes on the old Brown-Smith Railroad, and so much so that I salvaged it and brought it over here and installed it on the new layout, a little over a year ago, about a year ago. And away we went. Well, unfortunately, in the ensuing months since then, it's really taken a beating, people. I'm ashamed to say. Sculpt-molding and gluing and stuff back up in here found its way onto my track and onto my ballast and just really started honking up the whole scene. It didn't look very good at all. Plus there was a point where I was making a change up here. We were going to start to make a change and I never followed through on it, but I used a different colored ballast just to be new and different, and I never liked the way it came out. So we've got to get something done up here to return it to its former glory. And in my opinion, the thing to do is just strip this right back down as far as we can go. I did that by power washing the rails. I invented a technique. It's a thing now. It's power washing, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But first, let me give you a quick tour of Switch Junction so you can kind of get a little bit of a picture of the industries and the structures and some of the problems that we're having. Let's start back here behind me with the engine shed. I built this engine shed from a kit. It was one of the first kits that I built. And in that shed is where the 2-truck shay that runs up to the logging camp in the coal mine, that's where it hangs out when it's not actually doing a job. Next to that, I got a siding to store some cars on and whatnot. Right over in this area right here, this is our refrigerated storage facility. As you guys know, we have Fertile Valley over in the other part of the layout, and fruit comes in from there. And it makes its way here and then ultimately is loaded onto freight cars to head off to other places on the layout. We got to do some work here. Going to detail a little part of the inside. I got to glue the lid back on because I used super glue to glue it on the first time. What was I thinking, baby? We're going to take care of that. Behind this is a depot. That's my very first scratch-built structure, and I'm really proud of it. It's also taken a beating. I might have to rehab that a little bit. Gonna detail the inside, add some LED lighting, really pump it up back in there. Back over here, that's just a temporary structure. What really goes there is a State Line feed store kit that I bought, but unfortunately I had to do a project for Model Railroad Video Plus, and I ended up taking that one and kit bashing it to hit the deadline. I've got a replacement kit that we're gonna build. Detail again the inside, weather it, and light it up. It's going to look really good when we're done. What happens is stuff comes in from the depot to that store, and then all the local farmers and everything just do all their shopping right there. That's a lot of fun. As we move around the corner, I've got a diner I just put in there so all the country folk can come in and have some diner action, some grits probably, because I love me some grits. Then moving around, these 3 structures here are from the original version of this way back when I was running steam in here. And I decided to leave them because I really like them. They came out really nice, and so they're a 100-year-old building sitting at Switch Junction. I don't really care. Some of the inside of that will light up a little bit and add some scenery, some scenes and details around the windows and stuff, make the whole thing really come alive. Then a little bit further around, the final stop is back here at the grain loading facility. Again, trucks come in from Fertile Valley with grain in them, and they get loaded up into this grain trestle right here, dumped into hopper cars and shipped off to other parts of the layout. So boom, baby, that is Switch Junction. Let me show you some of the problems I got with it. Look at the condition of this ballast. Over time, just sort of the abuse of the railroad, some of the ballast fell off and needed to be reballasted anyway, or at least more ballast added to it. And then look back through here. Look at all the sculpt-mold on my track. That is just not prototypical. So, it's so embarrassing. We're gonna fix that, I promise. So again, the first thing to do is to go through and just strip out all the old ballast, all the scenery, down as far as I can, It didn't have to be squeaky clean because we'll end up covering over it. So that's the condition that it was, and you can see where I have it now. It's pretty much stripped down and ready to go, but let me show you how I did that. Naturally, the first thing we do is to pull off all the structures and put them someplace safe so they don't get further damaged. All right, let's get to stripping this thing down, baby. Like many of you, I use a 50% water, 50% white glue solution to glue down my ballast and to glue down my landscaping stuff and all that. That way later on, you can just get it wet and then you can just scrape it off or whatever, and it's really cool, and then you can redo it. So I decided I'm just gonna get all this wet, and to do that, I use my little squirt bottle here. It's on squirt, not mist, squirt, because later on I developed a technique where I power wash with this, and you're gonna see that. It's gonna blow your mind. So what I did is I took my squirt bottle and I put it on the jet mode, and I started spraying the ballast. Now, first I thought I had to let it sit there for a while to sort of reactivate the glue, but it turns out later on I realized that's not the case. Nearly immediately after you get it wet, it starts getting squishy. So the first thing I tried after getting it wet was just putting my shop vac on it and seeing if it would suck everything up, and it wasn't sucking everything up. Inside, between the ties, it was just stuck there. It was wet and it was goopy, but it wouldn't come out. So I grabbed me just my little jeweler's screwdriver and just started picking between all those ties. If you look at that, there's about 5 million railroad ties there, and I just picked the ballast out between all of them right up until the end. Once I get the ballast picked out and I vacuumed it again, it still wasn't quite right. So this is where the power washing comes in. I grabbed this, I put it on jet stream, and it just blew that ballast right out of there. Almost all of it got blown right out, and then just put the vacuum on there, the shop vac, because it'll suck up the water and the ballast, and it just got as clean as it could be. So like I said, I finally perfected this technique, probably because it wasn't until like the last 12 inches or so, but better late than never. What I would do is I would get it wet, scrape the ballast off on both sides of the railroad ties, scrape off what I could, then vacuum that off, then take my turbo jet sprayer deal and get up next to those ties and just start pulling that trigger, baby. Bam, 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 bam. And it just blasted out that ballast. It was amazing. Puts a lot of water on the layout. I had to keep the shop vac handy so I didn't, completely flood the whole layout. I used about 4 bottles of water in this area to get all that off. And then now for actually the most critical part of this operation, and that is making sure the little train still runs on the tracks after all of that. And it took some doing. I had to go through and clean the track pretty well because all that blasting, all that power washing was moving that thinned out white glue solution all over the place and getting on top of the rails. Even though you couldn't see it, it was there, it turns out. So I just put my Bright Boy on that and scrubbed it out pretty good. Then used some rubbing alcohol on a towel, cleaned it off, and just started running the train. I had to pay close attention to the turnouts because all that power washing put little pieces of ballast all over the place, and in some cases wasn't allowing the points to close all the way on the turnout. But again, I just went through and cleaned it out and managed to run my switcher all the way around multiple times without incident. So with all the ballast power washed off of there and the landscaping scraped off, we now have this pristine canvas on which we can repaint the Switch Junction scene, and I'm really looking forward to it. One of the next steps will be to sort of repair some of the cork roadbed here and there, do a little painting in the back on the hills, and then we can put in the dirt and the ballast, baby, and move on from there. It's gonna be a relatively short series, I think, maybe 4 or 5 episodes, but that'll be for future episodes. Thank you for joining me today on It's My Railroad. I hope you had a good time watching the video. I sure had a ton of fun doing this. And until next time, my name is Steve Brown. Rail on, my friends.